The following is a presentation of the I'd Rather Be Drinking Beer Fantasy Football League.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another update from the I'd Rather Be Drinking Beer Fantasy Football League. We start things off tonight on a bit of a down note. My partner in crime here, Rusty Cologne, he's had quite the week. First, he experienced his body actually rejected the mustache reattachment surgery. Yeah. And second, he was also the victim of a vicious attack from one of our team owners this week.
Yeah, it was awful, Harry. Let me tell you. I was just trying to ask a couple questions, and next thing I know, I'm waking up in the hospital, thinking I was back in for the mustache
And
the issue. And
our producer is saying that we have some footage of the attack, courtesy of TMZ. So let's show that now.
yeah.
So, how do you feel?
I'm not.
How do you feel about?
I'm going away.
Hey, don't push me. Hey, whoa. Hello. Hey. Oh, everybody saw that, right? Whoa.
Well, hey, enough of the downers, right?
Hold on. Oh wait, that was my injured arm. That should have hurt. Let's move on. Let's go ahead and start talking about some fantasy football.
Let's talk about.
Let's forget my week. Let's forget about my week. Let's talk about something fun.
Yeah.
Get it started out.
Season's in the books. Standings, final standings. You want to talk about the final standings real quick?
Yeah, we got some final standings here. As we expected, multiple scores. Gaz finished off strong with a solid 10-3 record.
Such a great team.
So nobody saw that one coming. Again, first-time owner, first-time fantasy football owner, and she just did outstanding this season. And by the way, she's the one that beat my ass. So, number 2 was, it looks like he changed his name again. Gurley, like the player. I thought it was Gurley. He must have did something legally there to change it back. All right, but anyhow, he finished with the, mediocre 8-5.
Yeah.
Wasn't very impressive.
Right. And the top 6 teams, they're all in the playoffs. I think kind of the crazy thing that happened that we were talking about prior to the show was Snosberry Liquor.
Man, I didn't want to touch on this, but we have no choice, man. It's kind of reminds me of the Carolina Panthers. They were at the top last year, and talk about a fall from grace, man.
Mm-hmm. Certainly.
So very good comparison there.
We do have a brief interview with the spokesperson for Snosberry Liquor.
Let's go ahead and tune into that now.
Hello. I'd like to say that Mr. Snosberry is not available because his team has let him down, and he is currently in negotiations to sell it to Jerry Jones.
Okay.
No comment.
Makes a lot of sense.
All I'm saying is we're talking about practice. Practice.
And, hey, it's playoff time, buddy.
Let's get to it. Let's get to the board.
Let's move over to the playoff board and
Let's do it.
Shake things up. Very good. Well, first things first, our top 2 teams, both off this week, no games, lucky them. Players get a chance to rest. I understand Gurley Brewing Company's owner also suffered a bit of a self-inflicted wound this week too. So, good timing, I guess.
Yeah,
He's off and doesn't have to play.
And I heard it was a result of being mocked during our last playoff picture preview episode that we did for you guys.
Yeah, it's distracting.
Hey, sorry, Gurley. I mean, it was nothing.
Nothing personal.
Yeah.
Really. Right.
Our bad.
And
Anyhow,
obviously, multiple scoregasms. Hey, best team in the league.
There you go.
Come out of the game and talk about first season ever of fantasy football to finish first in such a dominating fashion too.
4-game winning streak
Left
right now.
everybody in
Just
the dust.
destroying everybody in her
Fantastic.
path. She's on beast mode, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and move on
Yeah.
to our
Let's
playoff
move over to,
round one
our first
matchups.
So the first matchup we can talk about is our third place team, the franchise, versus our sixth place team. Team has no name. Right now, this is how Yahoo's projecting the scores: 115.62 to 111.73. Let's talk about the franchise, though. I know you dig deep into their stats this week.
Yeah, I did a lot of research. Obviously, franchise is going to be counting on Antonio Brown. However, Antonio faces snow showers while he's in Buffalo this week. So, is he going to get him 20 plus points in this match? It's hard to say. Likely not going to happen due to the weather conditions. But it is Antonio Brown, and I mean he's big game potential at any given time. So he's obviously counting on him. Also, Devonta Freeman, who's had two big back-to-back games, performances of 20.7 and 24.5 points. Those are huge. Again, 2 consecutive games, so he's on a little bit of a hot streak right now. And then I want to call this a little sleeper. He's got Matt Forte, who's been a little inconsistent. However, one thing he's been consistent with is having good performances against teams that have given up several points to running backs. And he's going to play the worst team this week in the San Francisco 49ers.
Right.
So those are probably some key players for him that are either going to make or break his playoff run.
Yeah, and as far as the team has no name goes, quarterback Aaron Rodgers, number 2 fantasy scorer in the entire fantasy league right now.
Correct.
282.42 points this season, absolutely outstanding. But facing Seattle this week, Seattle gives up the 6th fewest points to quarterbacks, so that's
It's
a
going
tough
to be a
matchup.
very tough matchup.
Real tough matchup. Then you look at another key player, the wide receiver Mike Evans of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Fantastic wide receiver. Number 2 in fantasy points out of wide receivers this
A
season.
little bit of a surprise, too. Nobody really saw that one coming. So.
I sure as hell did. And then you talk about New Orleans, against New Orleans. They give up the 13th fewest fantasy points, 13th most fantasy points to wide receivers. So it's kind of a middle of the road matchup, nothing spectacular. What's interesting about Mike Evans, too, he's kind of been a little inconsistent over the past 4 weeks. But he never follows a single-digit points game with another single-digit game. He always comes back and puts up double digits after a single-digit game.
Very important stat.
I think he's in line for a nice week this week against New Orleans. That's really going to help. Team has no name out.
Very interesting matchup.
You know, if we're looking at these two teams, if you're asking me, my gut feeling, I really like Matt Forte against San Francisco. I really like Devonta Freeman this weekend too. I think they're going to put up some real nice, healthy points for the franchise. I'm going to say the franchise pulls this one out. What about you?
I think I'm going to go with team has no name. Aaron Rodgers, man, he's been performing big all year. He really hasn't had a bad game at all this season. And the fact that there's not a lot of parity between there is a lot of parity between a 3 and a 6 seed. I mean, projection-wise, he should be way up on her, and they're fairly close, man. So I'm going to go with her. I'm going to go for the minor upset.
Okay.
I don't want to call it a major upset, but minor upset, and a team has no name.
Sounds good. Then our other matchup, the other playoff matchup this week is manning the course, our 4th place team against off in the yard, the 5th place team. Currently, the projections, the way they stand, off in the yard ahead, 108.2 to 97.62 for manning the course.
Not looking good. I've definitely got some notes on manning the course that I want to address here. Big blow, still out with an injury is A.J. Green, who's been a big-time performer for manning the course. He's been a difference maker in several games this year for him. He's currently out this week, so he will not be seen any action.
And that's a good matchup, too, against Cleveland.
Cleveland, surprisingly, who doesn't do too bad against the pass offense.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be some weather there, too, but But yeah, it is the 0-12 Cleveland,
Yeah.
or 0-13 at this point,
Right.
Cleveland Browns. Somebody else I want to touch on are the Crabtree and Carr combo this week. They are actually facing a team in KC who gives up the most points to wide receivers this league in fantasy football. So that's going to be huge, and I expect that to have a huge impact in the result of this match.
Yeah.
Also, a little bit of a sleeper for manning the course as well. I want to go with Rawls. He's a little bit under the radar, coming off pretty much an entire season's worth of injuries. Last week he had a very big performance with 24.3 points against Carolina.
Yeah.
Again, a team that resembles the franchise's performance this year.
Yeah. And talk about strong running backs. Often the Yard has the best running back in the league today.
Maybe
not
in,
just
maybe
the
in
best,
history too.
Yeah, not just the best running back, but the best fantasy player this season. I mean, David Johnson.
I
Absolutely,
don't know. I don't even know what to
absolutely
say.
outstanding.
Don't even know what to say.
34 points last week. He's averaging over 29 points over the last 4 games.
Incredible.
Yeah,
Incredible.
he has never scored less than 12 points in a single game this season. Going up against Miami, it's not a great matchup, but it's not a terrible matchup. I think.
But his numbers don't lie. I think
Numbers
he's
don't
going to
lie.
have a big game.
He's gonna have a big game.
too consistent right now. And
Yeah, I really like often the Yard's chances. I'm thinking she pulls it off this week. You know, ride that David Johnson wave all the way.
Right, and also he probably needs to be tested for performing enhancing drugs. Just my opinion.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this is great, man. I can't say how excited I am. We're finally here.
Yeah.
I mean, seasons
Playoffs are here.
seasons
All
work.
comes down to this.
I mean, just long, just grinding out every week, week after week, click after click. I mean, we're finally here. It's time.
Yeah.
This is what it's all about,
Yep.
Harry. I love it.
Hey. Well, I think that wraps it up for this edition of the playoff preview.
Cool.
We'll be back to talk about how everything
Get back
worked
to my
out.
painkillers and my bottle of liquor.
Sounds good.
Bye. Good night.